Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and today we're going to be working on another one of these episodes, some Boca Bearings. And I have the pleasure of working on two reels that Ray has sent in. These are beauties. These are the Penn 750 SS. It's a very large second generation spinning reel. Ray's kept them in excellent condition. He's asked me to do the full service on the reel. And well, while I'm at it, can I change over to the Boca Bearings? So, just checking a couple of things. One of the things, I'm not hearing the click-click that I should hear on that anti-reverse in the upper end. This is the override for the click-click, but it's not clicking. It's working, but not clicking. So I want to see what's going on with that. And then we're going to show you how to take out the original bearings, replace them with the Boca Bearings ceramic hybrids. And well, if you have this reel, we'll play along. We'll compare the performance differences as we work on it. We'll see what the difference is in the hybrid, and we'll also just make sure that you know how to take apart and service this reel so that you can keep it fishing for a long time to come. Before I go too much further, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel if you like the art of fishing reel service and repair. If you like to learn about fishing reels, when they were made, who made them, what purpose they serve, well, this is a good channel for you. And subscribing will ensure that you get to see when I'm posting new videos, and you can decide whether those are the videos you would like to watch. One of the things I'm noticing right now as I am working on this reel is there's a little rubber or plastic bump cap that goes right here. That's missing, and well, that's no longer available, but if I have a chance, maybe I'll try and show you the workaround to that. It involves just taking a piece of rubber tubing like you would find on a tube lure and just kind of working it over that stud and using that screw there to just hold it in place with a little washer. That just cushions it. This is there's no automatic bail trip with this. It's a whack-a-mole kind of thing. It comes over, it's going to slap it and push it back to cause it to trigger. So we'll see what we can do there. Well, we're taking the reel apart so that we have access to the bearings, and we also have access to the inner case. That starts by removing these screws on this side, and then you can see that we have a massive main gear in there. You can see that Ray's kept the reel very clean. And well, we want to get this off here because we want to find out about that anti-reverse clicker, among other things. Plus, that's the only way you're going to get to the bearing that's in here that we are going to want to replace. There's 3 bearings in this reel. They're massive bearings. And we're going to take the opportunity to replace those, do that as an upgrade. To get to that upper rotor, well, you got to remove the axle shaft. The axle shaft comes down and is held in by this assembly below here. It's a crossbar with 2 screws that are holding it in place to the crosswind block. And you can take those 2 screws off. And when you take your pieces and parts off, put them in a safe place so you know where to find them. I use a parts tray. My parts tray is a fast food container, and you can see I use the corners, different corners for different sub-assemblies to hold those parts so that I know when it's time to put them back together again where they belong. This is your axle shaft. That'll go in there. And once the axle shaft is out, you should be able to remove that main gear. Whoop, I forgot. This is the 750 size. That usually means that you have a big screw on this side that's holding the main gear steady on the other side. Well, before you can go any further, you need to remove that screw. Make sure that you have an appropriate screwdriver that matches that slot in that screw. I just got a call the other day from a fellow that said he opened up the reel and that reel had a butterflied screw in it. What could he do? Unfortunately, there's nothing easy to do about that. That's an unfortunate situation. If you find yourself kind of levering something and it's not working, one of the first rules of the game in reel repair is do not force anything. Okay, now we should be able to pull that main gear out. It's a beautiful machined brass main gear. Again, this reel has been kept pretty clean. I would say very clean by the standards of some of the things that I see come into my shop. And well, we'll just take the time as we move along here to just bring out the old grease. I use a combination of cleaners. I use the softest that I can. So for example, a paper towel or this cotton swab is usually enough on a reel like this. Make sure that you have all the old greases and oils out of there. I also like to use a bristle brush. You can use a toothbrush or these multi-packs that you can get at the dollar store or Home Depot. They usually have a steel wire brush, a brass wire brush, and a bristle brush like this one. I like these because they have the convenient kind of crow's nest on it or what have you to pull that off and get into tight spaces. Alright, looking for my pliers to remove that cross-line gear. And again, generally speaking, I like to clean the parts when I remove them. I also like to do an inspection of those parts, because if a part is broken and needs to be replaced, it's a good time to notice it then, rather than going through all of your service routine and then come back out and say, oh, look at that, there's a chipped tooth or some scarring or something else going on there. Alright, that's pretty much cleaned up. We can set that aside. One more thing to do here is just clean the bottom of the case. To do that, I'm going to use a penetrating oil to dissolve the remaining grease. The first pass will be with a paper towel. And then we'll just use a cotton swab again, just to get into some of those little spots where you can't reach with the towel to clean that up. Again, this is a very clean reel, which is always nice to see. Come back up top now. We'll start moving in on that rotor. It's funny, you have some tools that just know that's the tool. I've been working on enough of these. I have an offset box wrench. This is a 9/16 nut. We'll take that off. We'll remove the rotor. And let's see why that click isn't working. So this is your override, and that's telling me that this is just stuck, right? And generally that can be unstuck. Well, that could be unstuck with that penetrating oil we were using. If you need to, if that penetrating oil doesn't loosen it up, no, loosen it up right away, right? Funny how that works, isn't it? I will have the click back. I'm not sure that Ray is going to appreciate that, but the click will be back and loud as ever. Notice here that this has got to be centered when you go to reinstall. Best way of centering it is doing exactly what we do here. We have both anti-reverse dogs pretty much locked in. That will center it, because when you go back to put that on, you have a hex kind of nut kind of molded into your rotor, and that's the best way to line that up and get that done. Right now we've got to set this to the off position, get that out of the way. We need to remove the other anti-reverse dog. Again, use the one that's got the appropriate slot. And this one has a finger jointed or finger spring anti-reverse dog, and this is a shame. This has become the weak point of the reel. Sometimes these fingers break off, and if and when they break off, well, there's no more replacements available, and you might be lucky enough to find one, but if you're not, you may lose the whole reel because of it. It's a good place to tell you to take pictures. Pictures are very important as you go to reinstall. If you've lost your train of thought, if you've lost your memory in terms of where a piece of part came from, this is a good place to take that picture to remind you of things like the orientation of that anti-reverse dog, how that little collar was sitting in there, and well, the click ratchet, of course, and in this case, that there's another piece on this stack here that you're going to need. To get to this top bearing, to replace that, we need to remove the collar. This one you won't confuse because it's got 2 and 1. Some of these are not as easy as that. I'm going to put that right over the screws that are placed in there. We also have a shim spacer. And I know Chris has already seen this and he's just envying me. This just came right out. That's not always the case when you work on that top shaft. Depending on whether the reel has been serviced or not, well, if it hasn't been serviced in a very long time, has gone fishing in a saltwater environment, and has not been cleaned or rinsed after usage, that can accumulate all kinds of debris and sediment and micro sands and salts. And it's starting to sound like the Wizard of Oz here, oh my, but you can get all kinds of junk in there, and well, when it's time to bring that out, it's a challenge from time to time. In this case, it fell out nicely. But I'm just going to warn you that that's not always the case. Let's remove that first bearing. One more piece to do here. I'm just going to spray this down. We're going to do the same thing we did with the main gear. Let's grab the brush, pull that out. I'm inspecting the channels and the teeth ridges to make sure that they're not damaged. Now I always do a little bit of a test ahead of time in terms of how's the reel feel, so it gives me an idea to go look for something, but in this case I didn't notice that. This is a package from Boca Bearings. I always recommend that you use a reliable supplier, one that's you know what you're getting and paying for. These are not inexpensive bearings. And Boca Bearings is an ISO certified company that's been in business over 30 years. They are a dependable supplier. They are one that you can count on for what you're purchasing, and what you're paying is what you're getting. And they have a great staff, folks over there to help you as well. I'll leave the link in the description for you, and I will also leave you the part number if you're looking at this particular reel and doing this identical upgrade. There is a package or a kit available, and it's got a lot of funky numbers in it, so we'll come back to you and tell you what those are in the description. Okay, we've greased the pinion gear, we've greased the shaft. You do not oil or grease a hybrid bearing. Those bearings run dry. That's how they're designed. If you don't like the noise, every now and then it does have a little bit of noise, but if you don't like the noise, then what you want to do is put a drop of oil in there, but that's going to compromise the spin. Again, the best thing from a ceramic bearing standpoint is that they're very high tolerances in terms of uniformity, and well, the spin rate on them is crazy. They don't wear, they don't rust, but they do make some noise. And if you're fishing in a saltwater environment, well, remember what we were talking about over there before, how some of this performance gets slowed down because of the dirt and debris and light that builds up. These are rubber shielded, and they're going to withstand a lot of that, particularly if you're using this reel in a surf or you're getting splashed on a lot. I highly recommend that you make the change over to the ceramics when you find that your bearings are deteriorating. Okay, I'm using a screw starter here that was provided by Dick. Dick is the president of the local fishing club down in South Jersey, and what a thoughtful person he was. He saw how I struggled with those small pieces and said, you might want to try this. It's a Klein's tool screw starter, and Dick has been very thoughtful, and I appreciate that every time I pick that piece up. I believe the club that he was part of is called Salt Strong, and if you're in the New Jersey, South Jersey area and you're interested in that, look them up. Okay, remember what we said, we have to center this piece now. First thing we got to do is put that anti-reverse back in. And getting this centered was always a struggle for me till one day the light bulb went off. I said, you know what? If I put those two anti-reverse dogs in the way that they should seat, I shouldn't have a problem getting the rotor back on. Because prior to that, I was always doing a little bit of an eyeball kind of a thing. So we're going to flip this over, make sure that that drops in. I didn't put a drop of oil onto the pivot point here, so I'm going to do that right now. And now that's pretty well centered. And that's what you need to do in order to be able to mesh that hex. Let's see how we did. Sometimes it's more of a struggle than other times. Two things you got to do here. You got to make sure that you're up. I think we're in. You can tell if you're flush to the bottom here that you're in. And those of you that may have worked on this reel before are probably sitting there going, ah, maybe you have an aha moment there. But that's the little trick I found, and I'm happy to share it with you. Okay, finger tighten that to make sure that you've done that correctly. Ah, we got our click. All right, I'm going to set that off for a moment. And you can just feel the smoothness of that bearing that we just installed in there. It's a nice, smooth, easy turning top end of the reel. Well, we got two more bearings there. We're going to knock the bottom one out here. You can generally just push that out with a screwdriver, like that. Nothing needs to be done here, just plug it back in. Now these are tight tolerances, so make sure that you're pushing them in nice and even while you're doing that. Then we have the one that's in the side plate. This one's got the screw cap just like the other one did. There's that channel lock pliers to just give me a grip here. Maybe your hands are stronger than mine are. You can do the same thing. Try and push this one out. Well, this one's going to be a little bit tougher, so I'm going to go off camera here for a moment. I'm just going to set it in a vise where I can just kind of push down on it. Easy enough. You just heard it fall on the floor. But all I did was use the jaws of the vise, kind of like this, upside down, and then just push it through. When I was holding it in my hand, it's hard to do that. Let's just take that other bearing, put that in here while we are at it. Now, this cap has a felt washer that if you were using the steel bearings, you would apply some drops of oil on there to keep that bearing oiled. Again, this runs dry, so we're going to leave that felt washer in there, but no need to put that oil in there. All right, let's continue rebuilding the reel, and then we'll see how we did. Next up is the crosswind or oscillation gear. This is an aluminum gear. A lot of times folks wonder why isn't that brass or why isn't that steel? Well, aluminum, a lot of times you're going to find an aluminum or a plastic oscillation gear. That's for a fail-safe. If you're cranking away and you get hung up or something, rather than destroy the reel, one part, in this case the oscillation gear, is generally weaker than the others material-wise. And that's what will go, and it's almost sacrificial, right? It's one of those situations where you'd rather lose the one little gear than destroy the whole reel. That's particularly true of level wind reels, thinking like the Penn level wind reels, among others, that use that plastic drive gear. All right, I'm going to put a good helping of grease on here. It's part of the regular service. And while I'm doing this, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel in general, if you want to leave those questions in the comments section, I will try to answer those questions for you. Generally speaking, I will answer those questions the day after the video is posted. Okay, back to our axle shaft. A little bit of grease on there, not a lot. It's only going to scrape through. Bring that down so that you have the flat side of your axle shaft merged with your crosswind block. Center that little restraining clamp. Get your 2 screws. And your screw starter in my case. Now, I don't tighten them all the way down with that screw starter, but I do use them to get them started. The reason for that is this screwdriver has a split blade. That's what allows you to kind of grip the various slots in it based on width. And I just don't want to wind up taking one and pulling it out of position by trying to torque it down too much. That's in. Next thing we want to do is grab the screw from the other side. And again, remember to use the right size screwdriver for this. This one's almost perfect. Okay, give it a spin, see how this wheel operates before you go any further. Make sure your pieces up top are working. And we can take the side plate with the new bearing on it. Again, a little bit of grease onto the inside of that shaft, but that's it. Bring that over, snap that on. You want a nice tight snap sound to this. Bring those screws in. And it's funny, again, you just know which screwdriver is going to fit which one after doing this for a while. So, little screwdrivers come with me. I used to do some mission work out in West Virginia for a little while. We'd spend a week in the summer out there. And I lost a screwdriver and bought this one out there at an Ace Hardware. It's probably 20 years old. Fits this perfect. Okay, got that. Now you notice I didn't remove the bail. You do not need to remove the bail unless, well, it's not working. What you can do is you can put a squirt of oil onto the seam where that bail is resting. I did notice it was a little loose before, so I did tighten that up. Oh, that's a nice reel. Let's take the cap that belongs on the other side, put that in here. Let's go over to the spool and check the drag washers for the spool, then we'll come back and give it a final test. The spool drag washers are located in the cavity above. I believe that this spool shares the drag washers with the Penn Long Beach series. So if you need them, you've got them there. These have been upgraded or replaced. I believe initially that these were the leather washers of the time. These reels go back to the 1970s. So, and then when Penn came out with their version of the hybrid washers called the HT100s, these were put in. You can run these dry or you can put a little bit of lube on it. I'll show you how to put a little bit of grease on there. This is Cal's Universal Drag Grease. If you don't have it, don't run out and get it. The drag grease is intended to keep your drag washers from drying out. If you want to use the grease, which is optional on these, you can go ahead and get the use the fishing reel grease that you use to lubricate your reel. Here, top one is a Teflon washer, followed by that, followed by the C-clip to put the rim back in. Make sure that you fall into the groove. It's a retention clip. Let's clear the deck. Before I go much further, I want to take the opportunity to just use a little rod and reel cleaner to clean up any of the excess greases that I may have left on there, but also places where you just can't get normally. I use a little kitchen scrubby pad. rid of the dirt and grease there. We'll go ahead and put the spool on. Clean up the dirt and debris on the spool. Shines it up nicely. And let's go put the, oops, we're not in on this. One of the things I find if you're having difficulty lining that last washer up with the slot, simply doing that works. Turn it upside down to get it started. Tighten that down. Make sure it holds and then back it off. You don't want to leave them compressed if you're not using the reel. Well, one more thing. The handle goes on. And then we test to see how we did, not only with the cleaning and the servicing of the reel, but with the upgrade to those Boca bearings. Let's give it a ride. Oh my gosh. This feels like it just came off of production. It's that smooth. Okay, well, we have our silent anti-reverse on. Let's go make the noisemaker go on. Now we got the noisemaker, yay. Now let's put the override on so that you can backpedal the reel. And that's it. That's how you take apart, service, and upgrade this reel to the hybrid bearings. I hope you've enjoyed that. What we didn't cover today, I'm going to try and find a little plastic tube that can fit over that and act as a buffer to the bail. Right now, again, it's a bang bail, but it's hitting in here. You'd like to cushion that blow by putting that little cover back on. The cover is not available, but sometimes the tubing will work, and I'll see if I can do that before I get these back to Ray. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did like this video, please indicate that with a like. And well, if you haven't subscribed and you're still with me, go ahead and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. And well, I try to pass along other information in addition to how to take the reel apart and service it, as you can tell from the video. Before I leave, I want to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, and rescue, for all it is that they've done to help us along the way with their career choice, their decisions, and their ability to keep us safe and out of harm's way. Again, I'll try and leave this in the bearing pack number in the description in case you would like to do this yourself. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, wishing everybody a great day.